You're watching On the Move on Yahoo Finance. I'm Julie Hyman. Well, as we talk about a lot of businesses reopening around the country and here in New York State, we want to focus on one business in particular that is reopening hotels today. That is Foster Supply Hospitality. We're joined by Sims Foster now, the co-founder. This is a group of mostly rural hotels in Sullivan County, New York, which incidentally also happens to be where I am in the interest of full disclosure. Sims, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. You guys have a pretty extensive protocol of the reopening process, the rules around it, as one might imagine. I'm curious if you got any guidance from the state with the reopening protocols. Is this something you had to come up with on your own? What was the process like?
Well, great question and great to be here. Thanks for having me. I think the answer is yes and both. We would hear directives and then look for information, which sometimes you find and sometimes you don't. And then you have to think as an operator about what's right for you. So you need to be obviously following the mandated guidelines and then fitting your own program, which we blended in. And so I think we came up with what we all have to come up with, which is a physical safety plan. And we're really excited to welcome guests back to get an emotional safety and healing plan as well for people that are in need of a break.
Sims, I want to ask, for the average person, my wife and I are talking about traveling locally just to, get out when eventually we're able to. What does hospitality look like for your average traveler?
I think for us, it looks like less furniture, lots of space, options for people to check in without FaceTime, which is very interesting for us as people who love hospitality. We have large backyards. We've engaged the outdoors, trail systems, 2 Adirondack chairs in the middle of a field, giving people the kind of comfort that they can be outside and with each other, but also lots of space between them and other hotel guests. We have no elevators. It's the first time that I've ever seen that as an asset. And so we're really programming to get people upstate and then outside.
Hey, Sims, Rick Newman here. Do you care where your guests come from? You're in a relatively safe part of New York where there were a relatively low number of infections, but you're likely to get guests from New York City. And we know when this began, there was concern in some places about people from urban areas like New York going to other areas because those places didn't want New Yorkers. Do you?
Yes. Most of our guests, we have to assume, are coming from the New York metro area. And that's our backbone, and that's who's coming to the 2-hour drive upstate to see us. What we've done differently is we've always been a big encourager to land in our hotels and then go and visit the communities. We are now promoting that we are full service. We want our guests to come and stay with us and not go onto the main streets just yet, so that we can provide some security to our communities that the guests that normally we'd send to the breweries and to the main street businesses are staying basically encapsulated in our own properties.
Sims, I'm curious, as you guys reopen today, how booked are you? Are people coming? I mean, I know on an anecdotal basis, all people who are sort of based in the New York area have been getting questions from people. Do you know of any houses to rent for the summer, for example? So there's definitely that appetite to get out. So have you had a lot of takers? And I'm also curious, if I can, I know you are requiring guests to sign a waiver to stay with you. Has there been any resistance to that?
So to my knowledge, no resistance to the waiver. I actually think that guests, it shows that we're taking this seriously. And if we're making them do it, we're making everybody else do it. I think it's actually a net positive to have that waiver form. And by the way, we're all going to do it. We all need to do it in business. Bookings, interestingly enough, people are still skittish. So we see people book and then cancel, and then rebook. I think people's moods change by the hour. But we have seen in the last 48 hours an uptick for the next couple weeks. What we are seeing is people booking for July. There's something about this moment of a couple more weeks and us being in phase 3. Because right now we're in this place where we can serve our guests outside, And I think people are waiting for the full experience as well, especially at the higher rate class hotels. We're seeing our lower ADR perform a little better. I think people are waiting to spend $500 a night. They want to sit down in the restaurant.
And speaking of that, the higher end hotels, you all were supposed to open your newest property in March, which obviously didn't happen. I think it's also your largest property, if I'm not mistaken, and it had to undergo a pretty extensive renovation. So from a financial perspective, how do you then bridge the time, not just when you were closed, but now as you're sort of slow to come back up to capacity?
Yeah, so I've opened a lot of restaurants and hotels in my career, but I've never essentially opened on one night 5 hotels, which is what we're doing tonight. One of which has never been open to the public before, which is Canosa Hall, the one you referenced. And so our normal game plan of how we promote pre-opening, also the media landscape, we've lost a lot of some media pieces because understandably people are covering differently and they're not showcasing new hotels because everybody is reopening. So we've had to strategize our marketing plan on how we let people know that that new brand exists. That being said, as of last night, we have a couple rooms that are booking in there. So I think our prior reputation and it not being our first hotel hopefully will help us ramp it.
Sims, thanks for joining us. Sims Foster is the co-founder of Foster Supply Hospitality. Appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.